This is going to be an exciting episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast. I have my special guest, Roheel Ahmad from Forsyth Barnes, to talk about one, growing globally, and two, innovation. And one of the reasons why I'm excited to talk about with Roheel is they have bootstrapped their organization to a place of 80 something internal employees now. They have focused on just growth, innovation, and everything has been bootstrapped. Every dollar they have made, they've invested back into their company. So I'm excited to have you on the podcast to talk about one, growing globally, two, innovating, and also let's talk about how you guys have grown this business successfully across the globe. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So before we get started, how did you even end up in this wonderful world of recruiting?
I have been in and around sales since I was about, even pre-15, but my first official legal sales job was when I was 15, just almost turning 16. And it was a down and dirty call center environment, 3 hours. You weren't actually allowed, there was only about, I'd say 10 of us that were allowed to do more than a single shift in any one day. You weren't allowed to do a double shift. That's how intense it was. It was 3 hours on an auto dialer. The minute one call hangs up, and listen, if you weren't sworn it was a good call. Put it that way. The minute it hangs up, it's on to the next one. You can't control it. There is no pause. There's no anything. There's no toilet break. Yeah. So coming from that to this, it's nice to be able to speak to people who actually want to engage, want to talk, have got something to talk to you about, and not swearing at you. So
Yeah. I mean, going from getting yelled at to people are like, I actually want to talk about this conversation. I want to talk about this job. I love that.
Yeah. And I learned that at 15, 16. So fear of rejection quickly got beat out of me pretty quick.
And well, that's one thing that stops a lot of recruiters dead in their tracks from reaching their potential.
Yeah.
All right. So
being told to do one, say 100 out of the 300 calls that you're making or so, it's, you don't worry about it. Not this time. Thanks. Type conversation.
So then from the sales job to recruiting, how is that segue into recruiting?
So look, that was when I was 15, 16. I went through to become a manager of that place, one of the youngest managers there actually, for that business, all whilst I was still at school, in the UK. I then went to university, studied law, got a bit lazy, if I'm being really honest. Had a few jobs before and after, all kind of sales related. I'd done some field sales, selling advertising. Again, I was the first 17-year-old into that place. They'd never hired someone so young. And I had a company car at 17. None of my mates had one. So I'd always kind of strive for those types of opportunities. I remember through first year summer of university, I turned up to a global corporate trying to get a management role. And they looked at me and said, not a chance. You can have this role, but you're not getting a manager's role. I guess that kind of just lined up with my ambition. Anything I applied for was usually out of my understanding, knowledge, remit in terms of age or experience. And then straight after university, I had an injury for about 6 months. I was on crutches. Just decided, let's just get back into it. I knew I wasn't going to pursue the law route. Just wasn't enough. And I was a bit tired of studying, to be honest. It was a bit too much theory and not enough practicality behind it at the time. And so I found my way into a recruitment role in 2010. Yeah.
And then just took off from there.
No, not the first job. 6 weeks. Lasted 6 weeks, got told a few days after I didn't do coke with my bosses that I wasn't gelling well enough with the team. Cool. Took that one on the chin, but actually was so thankful that the whole episode happened because of what the environment was there and what their version of high performance was compared to the place that I joined then, May 17th, 2010. High performance, it just had a completely different definition to it. And that's where I really understood what work ethic meant. I'll be honest, I didn't like the feeling of being fired. So for the first 6 months, it was, don't even put yourself in that position to have the same conversation I'd have with you again. Even though it's for different reasons. Just didn't, I'm from a kind of small sleepy town in the UK. Didn't want to go back with my tail tucked between my legs or I tried, but can you lend me some money, or I'm struggling, or I have to come back home. So yeah, just refused to let myself do so.
I got to say that it almost sounds like a blessing in disguise, getting let go because you wouldn't do a line of coke with your boss.
Yeah. It's
Insane.
It just, I recognize the importance of it now. I think it's one of those things. In the moment, you're just, I need to pay rent. I need money. I need to pay bills. I'm not going back home type mindset. And it's only now in hindsight where it's taught me so much about what I don't want FB to be, what I don't want the culture here to be like, how not to treat people, how not to have an environment which is supposedly inclusive, but it's actually not. All those types of things. I look back on it, even to the point of where I said, look, I'm now going to be in a position where I'm going to have to hire people. I'm going to have to let people go. I will treat them with respect to actually do it face to face. Never will I just drop them a text or a call or anything like that. So it's almost like the how not to treat people 101 type thing.
It sounds like that lesson that you learned is like paying multiple dividends. So let's talk about FB.
Yeah.
Like, talk about your company.
FB started with my co-founder, Scott. We've known each other since 2010, mates first and foremost. So other than about 6 months or so, we've been working together for the last 13 years. Spent more time with him than his wife has for the first 7 or 8. We've even lived together for a few months whilst he's relocating back up in the UK. So I think we've got a good handle on knowing each other, knowing what motivates each other, knowing how to rile the other one up, if we're being really honest. So there's that. But we've got really similar ambitions. And I think that's been so important to the growth of our business so far. Very ambitious, very competitive in both of our natures with each other, but protective of each other as well. And it's just, we're pretty aligned on most things. That means that we're heading in the same direction. So I think that's really important, first and foremost. That's the foundation of the business. Global mid-senior executive appointments business operating in the fintech, e-tail and sports and entertainment worlds. Phenomenal growth so far, completely bootstrapped. So never taken a dime from anyone. We've got a vision to actually take the business public over the next 4 or 5 years, and we've set that out. We've committed to grow the business to a certain level. So $75 million business plus is what we're looking to grow it to. And we've committed already to giving a third of that away to the people in our business. So effectively, we're giving away $25 million, $25 million to our own people. And that's the big thing that we're driving on at the moment. We've got people who are on track, they're on a trajectory now. They'll take home 1.8, 1.9 mil after everything. And that's not done as a sacrifice thing. That's an additional way of us saying thank you for being so instrumental in the growth of the business as well. So, yeah.
I want to say, I don't think enough people talk about ways to help compensate and grow the people that have invested in the company that they're working at. And I love that you guys are actually, told the team, setting the team up where if you guys win, they win also.
Yeah. That's how I think about it. My way of thinking about it is not if the business does well, my people will do well. If my people are doing well, the business cannot fail to do anything but well. So it's the people first. So I look at the success stories of people whose ambition it was to relocate from the UK to New York and go out there with us. And he's gone and done that. People who wanted to get on the property ladder in 5 years, and they've done it in 4. People who've then been able to get their family on and so on and so forth. And the way people have been able to elevate their own personal circumstances, they're the things that I take the most pride in. And again, if they're able to do that in their personal lives, which is being funded and so on through us in the work that they're doing here, that means the business can't be doing badly. So, yeah.
Well, and so few people take that route. Why did you, I don't want to even say that this is innovation, but I feel like it's innovation in the space. Why did you guys take the route to make the investment like this back into your team?
When Scott and I first sat together and said, what do we want this business to be about? There were too many times where we were so frustrated on corners being cut or advantages being tried to be taken from the business. If we moved this set of invoices to here, we'd have to pay as much commission or a bonus. If we do this, then we take a bit more money for ourselves, those types of things. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but I just think that's so small minded that rather than focusing on how to penny pinch and save a little bit here or there, think actually about how you can use that to go and grow and actually achieve what you want to achieve through growth, not through saving. Has its downsides in that there's always that thing from a personal perspective of growth, 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 spend, spend, spend. And sometimes we have to rein that back in and so on as well from time to time, right? But I'd rather go, it's one of the reasons why we went to New York. We didn't go to Boston. We didn't go to Miami. We didn't go just outside of New York. We haven't gone to Brooklyn or anywhere like that. We've gone first office, Manhattan, get straight into the depth of it, into the toughest environment you could possibly do. Coming in the differences from the UK, the costs are astronomical compared to the UK. We haven't sat there and said that ours will be, we'll do this from the UK and again, great profit and cost saving, etc. Because I always think that that will only get you to a certain point and you're not all in until you're all in. And so for us, being all in was, if we want to do business out in New York and in the US, let's get out there. Let's get in the most competitive environment. Let's get out there in the busiest area. Let's get out of the most expensive area. It's that for a reason. There's plenty of benefits that come with it as well. So it's just that same thing of we're not here to cut corners and do like growth through savings. It's growth through actual growth.
Now, when you guys sat down and like, you guys are like, we're originally focused in the UK.
Yeah.
And you sat down and looked at like, all right, let's attack the American market.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to attack the American market? And two, why did you just jump into Manhattan?
Yeah. Being from the UK, New York and Manhattan specifically has always got that thing of, there's a common phrase used out here, that New York is London on steroids. And it gets commonly bandied about, but honestly, I'm out there so often and split my time between the UK and the US. It really is. I am walking down the waterfront, looking on the side of New Jersey, having just played soccer, finish at about 10:30, 11:15 at night. I'm seeing people pushing their strollers down the water. I'm seeing people jogging, people walking their dogs, people still queuing for the tennis courts by Pier 40. And I love that. And you just don't have that in the UK. So I think that's why Manhattan specifically, you just don't get that anywhere else. That buzz. When I'm up early in the morning, the first thing I do is I look outside my hotel room to try and spot people in their offices, because I'm usually staying in around 5:00. Who's up and at it straight away, like those early mornings. And I have that respect. Who's on the streets, who's making their way into work at 5 a.m. That kind of thing, which I love that, which I do feel we slightly lost some of that element in London. As to why the US, that was from day one. When we set up the business, we always said we were going to be a global business. It wasn't that we focused on the UK and then decided to go to the US. It was how quickly can we get to the US? Right here and now at the beginning, it's UK until we get to a certain point so we can get out and do not just the US. We're looking at the Middle East, we're looking at the APAC region, etc. as well. So it's not the US is the limit of our ambition.
I love that. And talking about New York, like we typically stay right across from Goldman Sachs' headquarters, and just the energy there. And occasionally it's like 2:00 in the morning, you see people leaving the office on a Tuesday night or Friday night, but there's just a work ethic and energy, and it rubs off on you also.
Yeah, it does. It honestly, it's truly inspirational. It's good.
Awesome. And you said you guys are looking at other parts of the growing globally. What other places, APAC, like how do you grow outside the UK or outside the US?
So I think through lessons learned on previous travails, we try to incubate it here first and make sure that there's enough of a market or relationships, that the people that are going out there are well versed in the FB way and how we do things, before then going out to whether it's the US or wherever. We've got New York, we'll continue to grow that. We've just had someone who's just started in the last few days. We've got more people joining in the New York office and team as well. And we'll continue to grow out there. Once that's at the right level, we're then looking as quick as we can. And there's no timeline to this at the West Coast. So we're kind of putting our flag in LA for now. It's likely to be in LA or close to. Um, we're asking questions because we've also got a tech play in the background that we're building. Do we do a Samfran with that and tie it in, and therefore FBs and Samfran, the tech businesses and Samfran as well, etc. So it could be that, but we're kind of using LA as until we're ready to do so as the kind of visualization piece, if you like. And then more recently, we've been asking questions about Dubai. So open up the Middle East. We've got some clients out there in the e-tail world. We've got clients out there in the sports world within Formula One. So yes, the Yas Marina circuit, the client of ours as well. Do we then open that up as our gateway to the Far East APAC type regions? It's a bit closer. It's easier than going all the way out there with the time differences. So it's a kind of stepping stone that would allow us to then grow out further. But is there a strong enough market, which we think there is, and we've got the confidence in. We're still going through the research phase at the moment, but how can we do that? And then, to be honest, the real query from there is, are we strong enough to do both at the same time? Or do we have to prioritize? The smart say prioritize one and then do the other. I don't know, maybe the ego ambition says get yourself in a place where you can do both. Even if you don't decide to do both, get yourself in a place where operationally you can actually handle both. Because that means we're in a much stronger place as an overall business as well.
Fantabulous. Now, one of the things that we were talking about before we got started is the innovation that you guys are doing. What kind of innovation are you guys tackling? What kind of challenges, and how are you bringing innovation to the spaces you're in?
Yeah. So look, we're in an industry, which is, I love it. And I'm so thankful to the opportunity that's afforded us and so many of the people here. And let's face it, at the customer end, there's not been a great deal of innovation or value add really. A lot of businesses, because there's such low barriers to entry, a lot of business still operating on largely on practices and terminology that were bandied around 3, maybe even 4 decades ago. And the same sort of strategies and so on. So that is a question that I ask myself pretty much daily. So as a business on the medium term, we're productizing our business where no longer is a business grown or trades on the reputation a client has with a single individual. But more and more businesses are coming to FB on the strength of our products for the products themselves, not because of just purely a relationship. I don't think you'll ever take away the relationship element to it in its entirety, but want to be that product focused organization. So we're building that out at the moment right now as well.
And when you say product, what does that mean in our space?
So for instance, we do a lot of retained assignments with our clients where we go and hire their next senior exec into their business and go on the headhunting search for them. I want that to be our lowest value product. I don't mean financial value, but value that we're able to offer the client. So what I mean, the way we're kind of innovating some of that is the way we will conduct the offers for our clients. We've innovated the way we now offer people internally in FB, where we've got 100% success rate on our offer to acceptance internally since we started doing this. It taps in much more into the psychology of the individual when you're actually going to offer, as opposed to most clients will just pick up the phone. Here's the offer. Here's the numbers. Do you want it? Are you in? But no, there's a whole build up that needs to be done before it. There's a whole journey that needs to be created along that process, but specifically at the offer stage where that individual has to come away from that, irrespective of the acceptance or rejection or anything, thinking, do you know what? That is the best offer process I've ever been through with any business. And that's been put on by FB. And for the client to come back and say, we've never had anyone give us that kind of feedback before. That's because of you guys, because of your product. At every turn that we engage with a client through a retained process now, that my yardstick is for a client or a candidate or to turn around and say, I've never experienced that before. I've never seen this before. I've never had this before. Whether it comes back to us or as representative of the client, that's the thing that we're really looking for. Because if the candidate's thinking that about the client's then feeding that back to us saying, feedback we're getting from the process that you guys are running is phenomenal. The impression of our business is phenomenal. That will in turn deliver great value for the client, which just helps grow our brand in that space as well. So these are all the things that I'm truly thinking of now, of that journey that people take in going through a process and dealing with FB. How does that look? How does that feel? Let's not be limited by what our industry's been doing for the last 3 or 4 decades. Let's try and take some inspiration from the tech industries, from all these other sectors that probably do it a lot better than we do.
I absolutely love that because I mean, you said it earlier. How many companies are just like, hey, here's your candidate, or hey, here's the offer. All right, cool. You've setting up the process, you're building it out and giving the experience. And people talk about experience nonstop. So I'm sure that's just another BD, like, an incredible experience is turning into a great BD leverage for you too.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that's part of what we're doing in the background. I was mentioning the longer term vision. We're building a tech platform right now. That is all geared towards the growth and scale markets, which we do some of our absolute best work. We have more impact and sat in front of the founder or CEO of a business, where they want to take their business from A to Z over the next 3 years, and I understand their objectives of what they want to achieve as a business. Then we can start talking to them about the role that talent has to play within that. I've sat in front of the CEO of a fashion brand where my marketing expert sat there basically structuring. They don't really have much internally at the moment. They're basically giving me advice of how to structure the whole marketing department down to different personalities and profile types. Because if we get you this in this area here, you don't need someone who's a stronger branding. So we can probably get you this. Here's how you bonus them. Here's how you give them L tips. That's just going to entice them. Here's then what we need to do with the teams underneath them, et cetera, et cetera. This will help you get to the numbers that you've just said you want to hit on your revenue targets in the next 3 to 5 years.
That's phenomenal. That's what every company needs. That's what every company struggles to freaking figure out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Those kind of conversations that we enjoy more.
and you're coming in as a full on like consultant. Like this is going to sound dumb, but just the way that you're talking about this future product being is like something that you could also like come in, consult, pull equity, and do the recruiting.
That tech platform for us is the ideas that we've got behind it, where if we get it to do what we think it can do, and it plugs into some of the other data platforms that are out there, it essentially would reach out to the founders of these businesses through their subscription that they already have, essentially say, based on where you are on your journey, we think you need X, Y, and Z. And so that's where some of the AI is coming into it, taking from the data that is already out there, whether they're going through funding or whether they're a certain part of their journey. You embarked on this major program of work 12 months ago. Based on all the other data that we've collated from all the other businesses that we work with, they're now at this phase of their project. There's a good shout that you might in the next 3 months be needing X, Y, and Z in terms of services or support to get there, or you need further funding, blah, blah, blah. And so it's trying to take them there on that journey to help them scale their businesses. It's more difficult to have someone like, as much as I love them, they're a client of ours, I don't think a Nike is going to benefit from the platform the same way as a growth and scale organization is. So these are all some of the things that we're kind of looking to put into the overall platform.
That is phenomenal. Now, before we go into the next part of the conversation, is there anything else that you'd love to share about FB innovation, your guys' culture, or any of that stuff?
I mean, look, I think it's been an amazing 7.5 years. I think it's been an amazing journey for everything that we've achieved, but I still think of us with such an early phase. I don't like to call us a startup because I think we're somewhat beyond that, but I almost want to retain the fun cultural element that does come with that mindset. We're still clever with our money. We're not flippant with it. And like you said before, we reinvest every cent that we have back into the business as well. So it's mass growth. So I think it's just that thing. Sometimes you lose sight of, you think, oh, you're a lot further on the journey than you actually are. And it's a lot more advanced. And I'd say actually for our ambitions and the org structures that we've got for each office, there's so much opportunity for people to come into this. I think I'm still at an early phase. I can still get into that share scheme and come out with over $1 million on what that looks like. I can still add this much growth. I can still progress. My MD in Nottingham in the UK, he joined us as a senior consultant. He's now my MD in 4 years. There's still so much of that opportunity. People are speaking to us about acquisitions. There's still a hell of a lot for us to achieve and do, of which we're hugely excited about that journey.
That's exciting. And like I said, I'll say this again. I'll highlight this again for the listeners. Like, I love that you guys are creating opportunities for that. When you guys win, they win. Like places where, like, when you guys go live, like on the market, it could be an easy $1 million+ for somebody that's even starting their career with you guys right now. Love that.
We've got I think the other thing that's important I met a few people, I was interviewing a few people recently, and they're saying it's a bit cloak and dagger. We don't really know who the shareholders or how many or what value they've got. We're loud and proud about it. We've just had a half year sales conference announcing a record ever H1, especially against the backdrop of the industry struggling and X business is down 34%, X business is down 44%, etc. We're up. We've hit a record H. We're on for a record year. And we're loud about this is how many shares these people have got. This is how many shareholders we've got, which are all internally FB people. This is the value. This is the trajectory of what this individual has. Why would we not want to celebrate that and shout that out?
Once again, I love that because I actually look at a company years and years ago where it was talking about shares, but if you ask them like what the shares are worth or this kind of stuff, they're like, well, it's going to be based on, it was just exactly, you said like cloak and dagger, but nobody could answer a question.
Yeah, they ruined it. And I do know why, but that's not us as a business.
Awesome. Well, excited to jump into the quick fire questions with you. What advice would you give to a brand new recruiter that's starting out in this industry in 2023?
If I was putting that in the context of FB, trust the process. That's the number one thing that I'd say, because I know our process works. We talk about it quite a bit internally of here's the next one off the conveyor belt. Here's the next one off the conveyor belt, where people have hit some phenomenal stats and numbers in their first 12, 15 months. At a 21-year-old who in his first 12 months in the business ended up growing such a personal contract book. And then by about 14 months, I think it was, he had a team of 5.
At 21?
At 21. Because his age didn't matter. He's mature for his age. Don't get me wrong. His age didn't matter. His lack of experience didn't matter. Bear in mind, this is someone who had about 12 months experience prior to us in a completely different market, high volume, low margin stuff. And that's not us. So you have to kind of relearn everything. But that's not an abnormal story for us either. The earnings that people have taken home inside their first sort of 12 to 18 months, that's not a 1 in a million for us. Same time, I don't sit here and say the age old thing, you'll earn 100 grand in your first year, et cetera, et cetera. We've got plenty of people who have done it. It's hard. You've got to have the work ethic for something like that as well. But in the context of FB, the number one thing I'd say is trust the process, trust our process, follow it through to a T, and you'll come over.
Awesome. Same question, but for people that have been in the game 5, 10, 25 years, what advice would you give to an experienced recruiter that's looking at staying successful or becoming successful?
If you're able to go back to your very first 12 months, assuming it was a successful 12 months for you, what actually did you have to do to get you that success? Never think that you're beyond that. We look at it in the sporting world all the time. If you've got an NBA player, an NFL player who's now gone and made the cut and who's made the first team, at what point do they think it would be okay to drop their fitness? I've got the skills and I've got the ability, but I don't have to work on my fitness. I don't have to get up and down the court or the pitch for the whole game anymore. Yeah. The first foundation would be your fitness, right? Why in our industry do so many think that after my 12 months I've had a bit of success, I don't need to do those basics anymore. I'm beyond that. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. I don't need to look at my KPIs or whatever. You wouldn't accept that in the sporting world. Don't accept that in your own personal career.
I absolutely love that. Has there been a book that's had a huge impact on your own personal success?
I've just finished, and I had the pleasure of seeing him just this week, actually, Tim Grover's book, Winning. So he's released, this is the individual who is famous, amongst other things, for coaching Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. So someone who knows about high performance and had read pretty much back to back Relentless and then Winning. And he was in the queue behind me at JFK just last Friday. So that was a bit of a proud moment.
That's super awesome.
Yeah, I'm not big for approaching people, but yeah, that was pretty good. Atomic Habits is one that always comes to mind in terms of those little consistencies and the science behind things as well. They're probably 3 of the ones that really come to mind off the bat. There's plenty of the other big ones. effective habits of people, etc. as well. How to build relationships. But they're probably some of the three that really spring to mind at the moment.
How do you think AI is going to impact the future of recruiting?
I'll be honest, I don't even think we even know. I think everyone is putting things out there to try and steal a march of being recognized as a leading authority and a leading light on it. But I think cleverer minds than I don't really fully understand the capability. I think this is like the industrial revolution type time of a society, and technology will advance at such a rate that we won't even be able to keep up. I think what I see from some of the big boys of Adobe now, you almost used to have to need a degree to use Photoshop. Now it's enter text-based instructions and it'll like edit images and so on. I don't think we really know. I do think that there's an element that either the gig economy or the more transactional end of the marketplace gets replaced with kind of AI algorithms and so on. I don't fear that it will do too much to replace us at the senior end of the market yet. I say that because, again, it's not within my understanding at the moment, but I don't know how AI will pick up nuance, how AI will judge character, because it's still working through data. I don't know how AI would speak to the CEO of a business and say, you do or don't have gravitas. And my client is looking for these kind of characteristics or personality traits outside of references or whatever. But again, I just don't think that works. They're the things that I don't worry about at our level of the marketplace.
One of the things that you mentioned, I heard it was kind of like a theme that you mentioned like once or twice already in our conversation about visualization. Like you visualized this years ago.
Yeah.
What is the impact of visualization been on some of your success and the things that you're doing?
I think as a culture, the American culture is so much better for it than we are as Brits. I think we are naturally self-deprecating, naturally, like most people ask me, how's the business going? My first thing is like, yeah, it's been all right. And there's a lot more self-doubt that creeps in that we just have culturally. I think that as an American culture, and I plug into this a lot more, is that almost deluded self-belief is such an important trait to have. Of I cannot or I will not that I cannot fail. I recognize that I will fail a lot, but I also recognize that I don't think of it as a failure. In fact, someone was speaking through recently saying, you can't even bring yourself to use the word failure. I don't think of it as a failure. I just think of it as a stepping stone or a learning stone, or cool, I have to tweak things to actually get to the place that I want to get to. I don't want to induce fate because I do believe in God. But as much as that is in my power, if you had to say to me, will FB be a success to the level that we want it at? I can't imagine anything else. I genuinely cannot picture that it won't. Might be dangerous, might come across arrogant, don't really care for either. I just don't think that I can't see us failing. And listen, if it does, I think of that as cool. We missed a trick somewhere. Let's pivot on something. Let's take the learn. We're coming from a place of experience. I can now build it might have taken us 10 years to build. I think we can do it in 2.
Love it.
It's that, call it delusion. Don't know. They do often say that entrepreneurs and serial killers have the same affliction of psychopathic tendencies, of which they neither think they will fail in any situation. If you ask Scott about me, it's very rarely do I think I'll go into a situation coming out on the worst end of it. We played golf. I've never played golf before. He was having lessons and I went onto the golf course expecting to beat him and was angry when I lost. And I've never been on a golf course before. But I just looked at him and thought, he hasn't got anything physically that I don't. He's hitting a ball. I've played other sports. My hand-eye coordination's all right. Sure, I can do this. I couldn't, but yeah.
Well, that kind of goes into my next question I have. Is there something that has been a major part of your personal success? And what is that?
I think some of the influences that I've had from a career perspective, which taught me how to do things, how not to do things. Who I call my first real boss, because I don't really count those 6 weeks per se. Although he did teach me how not to do things. My first real boss, without going into details, we didn't end things on great terms. But there is so much I take away from him of inspiration, of how he was able to bring people in close, how we had good relationships with certain people, how he was able to paint a vision and motivate and inspire people, that our personalities are different. But if I can get a part of what he did in the way that he did it, then that'll serve me right. So there's plenty of people I take that inspiration from a career perspective. There are obviously very famous business people that you look to and think, Jesus, how have they innovated, or how have they grown that, how have they scaled that in such a short time frame? On a personal level, I've spoken to this a few times. I can't go beyond my parents. Speak a lot about my dad and the work ethic that he showed for someone who moved to the UK, didn't speak the language, 14, no education to speak of, and the work ethic he displayed. My mum comes into that as well, because with all the work hours that dad was doing, mum had to learn the language, little education, understand how things worked, had to look after kids, was running the shop and stuff at the same time, whilst dad was out doing a different job. I was a newborn, I think, when she had that shop as well. My two first cousins were living with us, so she was effectively parenting them. Dad was putting those two and my sister through private school at the time, whilst sending money back to Pakistan, whilst trying to elevate our lifestyle in either a better house lifestyle or situation for us. It's a lot. So from a personal level, to see the struggles, I haven't even got 5% of the strength in the resilience that they have.
Man, awesome. Well, this is actually going to be one of my favorite questions, and it always is one of my favorite questions. Everything that you've gone through, all the experiences, the ups and downs, the success, the failures, if you can sit down and have a cup of coffee with yourself at the very start of your career, what advice would you sit there and give yourself?
Good question. Very good question. Do these come from listeners, or have you pre-thought of these out of curiosity?
I pre-think of these.
Pre-thought. Dream bigger than you thought was possible. I think when we first started this, we wanted to just have a good recruitment business. And we weren't doing too much different, to be honest. That kind of happened more over the last few years. At the very beginning, it was just, we think we can do this better and just make more money. I think a lot of it was about, we can make money, or we'll make more money. And over time, we started to understand ourselves a bit better, that we're worth more than just purely recruitment and sales and so on, that we can actually go on and have a greater impact in the industry. So if I had to go back to those first days, it would be think bigger than just having a profitable recruitment business.
This has been a phenomenal interview. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd love to share with the listeners?
I think there's been a great range of topics to cover, to be honest. And aside from the value that your listeners will get from listening to probably others other than just myself, and the great people that have been on the podcast, enjoy the industry. I think it can give so much, have a higher standard on it, especially with low barriers to entry that they can be across the industry. Have a high standard, build relationships, work hard. I don't think anything can replace the work ethic element of it. If you want to go out and achieve special things around good money, whatever your ambition is, like, make sure your work ethic backs up to all that's required to go out and achieve that. Don't expect to earn 100K if that's what it is, and have a 50K work ethic, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Well, definitely thank you for coming on and sharing. I am so excited about what you guys are doing with FB and the future of FB. And for the listeners, really, you're one placement or two placements away from completely changing your life. So let's go out there and crush the rest of the year. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Evan.